U.S. Postal Service suspends incoming parcel deliveries from the Chinese mainland and Hong Kong. Donald Trump says the U.S. wants to take over the war-ravaged Gaza Strip. And Thailand to suspend electricity and fuel supplies to some border areas with Myanmar to curb scam centers. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The White House says a phone call between President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping will happen soon. But Trump says he is in no hurry. This after China announced retaliatory tariffs on select American imports and an antitrust investigation into Google in the wake of an additional 10% U.S. tariff on all Chinese imports. The U.S. also suspended incoming parcel deliveries from the Chinese mainland and Hong Kong. American tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico were to go into effect on Tuesday, before Trump agreed to a 30-day pause after the two countries acted to address his concerns on border security and drug trafficking. Nasir Karim with more.
U.S. President Donald Trump prides himself on having what he believes to be a good relationship with Xi Jinping. He was keen to meet Xi within the first 100 days of his presidency, and a phone call is planned between the two leaders. But with tit-for-tat tariffs sparking what could become a full-scale trade war, Trump said he's willing to wait.
We'll speak to him at the appropriate time. I'm in no rush.
Washington says Beijing is partly to blame for the flow of the opiate fentanyl into the United States. China denies the accusation, saying fentanyl is an American problem.
He is not going to allow China to continue to source and distribute deadly fentanyl into our country. That was the reason for this tariff. It was a retaliatory tariff on China for the last 4 years of their unprecedented distribution of fentanyl into our nation's borders. So when that call happens, we will provide a readout like we always do.
As part of the China tariffs, Washington has temporarily suspended parcel deliveries from the mainland and Hong Kong into the U.S., though there's no ban on letters and other flats. The move will affect internet fashion retailer Shein and online dollar store Temu. The so-called de minimis exemption allows importers and U.S. shoppers to avoid paying tariffs on packages worth less than $800, but now that loophole has been closed. The U.S. is also considering adding Shein and Temu to the Department of Homeland Security's forced labor list. Both companies deny using forced labor. On Tuesday, Beijing announced retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. starting from February 10th. It includes a 15% duty on coal and liquefied natural gas products. Crude oil, agricultural machinery and large engine cars will face an additional 10% tariff. Export controls are also being imposed on rare metals that are used in the production of high-tech products. 80% of U.S. rare earth imports come from China, Malaysia, Japan and Estonia. Trump is looking to resource-rich Ukraine as an alternative supply line and as a form of payment for Washington's multi-billion-dollar support for Kiev's war effort against Russia. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
The U.S. Postal Service has suspended the acceptance of packages from mainland China and Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Shippers Council warns this could impact e-commerce businesses, potentially leading to a surge in returns. The Macau Post and Telecommunications Bureau has suspended the acceptance of small packets and parcels to the U.S. The U.S. Postal Service announced on its website that the acceptance of incoming international parcels from mainland China and Hong Kong is temporarily suspended until further notice. USPS said the change will not impact the flow of letters and flats, mail that could be up to 38 centimeters long or 1.9 centimeters thick. At post offices in Hong Kong, no relevant notices are posted. Post office staff said they will not accept U.S.-bound parcels for now, including photos and magazines. Discussions are ongoing internally about how to handle the packages already in transit. Some Americans residing in Hong Kong express worries about the impact.
I have family still in the U.S. and I always send gifts, from Hong Kong. It doesn't make sense to me there's a lot of Americans that don't live in America.
The Hong Kong Shippers Council stressed plenty of e-commerce businesses rely on Hong Kong postal services for shipments, which are about 30 to 40% cheaper than the charges of courier companies. Underscoring the confusion caused, the council's chairman Willie Lin questioned how the U.S. handles a good already on their way to America and parcels that just reached the U.S., as it's unclear whether the U.S. Postal Service will proceed with their customs clearance. He added the move can leave thousands of consumers unable to receive their goods, triggering a chain of frustration, including the questions on refunds and return policies. In response to inquiries from TVB News, several courier companies said they still accept U.S.-bound parcels, but the companies have yet to receive notices over how the latest U.S. postal policy will affect customs clearance. U.S. Customs and Border Protection says the additional 10% tariff imposed on Chinese goods also applies to Hong Kong. Figures provided by the Hong Kong Trade Development Council indicate Hong Kong exports to the U.S. in 2023 reached over 272 billion Hong Kong dollars. That's around 6.9% less than 2022. The U.S. is placed second behind the mainland among Hong Kong's export markets, with the former primarily importing telecommunications equipment and computers from the city. Two Panamanian lawyers are trying to cancel a 25-year concession to Hong Kong's C.K. Hutchison Holdings to operate two entrance ports in the Panama Canal. The pair filed a lawsuit with the country's Supreme Court the day after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told Panama's President Jose Raul Mulino to lessen China's influence on the canal. The suit argues that the contract, which was renewed in 2021 pending an audit, is unconstitutional. The U.S. says is an example of China's expansion in Panama, which they say goes against a neutrality treaty signed in 1977. China said allegations about Beijing's control over the U.S.-built canal were totally false and that it had never interfered in canal affairs. Trump wants to retake authority over the canal after the U.S. handed over full control to Panama in 1999. U.S. President Donald Trump offered a jaw-dropping performance during his joint news conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu Tuesday. He suggested the U.S. would take over the war-ravaged Gaza Strip and redevelop the area into the Riviera of the Middle East. Trump's proposal was swiftly rejected and denounced by American allies and adversaries alike. Tracy Furness has more.
Trump unveiled his surprise plan without providing specifics at a joint press conference with visiting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday. Trump said he wants the U.S. to take long-term ownership of the Gaza Strip, redeveloping it after resettling the 1.8 million Palestinian people in other countries.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad, this could be so magnificent.
Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu said in order to secure peace in the region, they would need to finish the job.
But as we discussed, Mr. President, to secure our future and bring peace to our region, we have to finish the job. In Gaza, Israel has three goals: destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, secure the release of all of our hostages, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
Trump's proposals drew swift opposition from regional and world leaders. In Saudi Arabia, its foreign ministry issued a sharply worded statement saying that their long call for an independent Palestinian state is a firm, steadfast and unwavering position. It also says Saudi Arabia will not stop its tireless work towards the establishment of an independent Palestinian state, with East Jerusalem as its capital, and that the kingdom will not establish diplomatic relations with Israel without that. Australia's Prime Minister said his country continues to support a two-state solution in the Middle East. Trump said he plans to visit Israel, Gaza and Saudi Arabia. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Greenland's parliament has passed a bill that bans political parties from receiving contributions from foreign or anonymous contributors. This after U.S. President Donald Trump expressed his wish that the United States take over the vast mineral-rich Arctic island that belongs to Denmark. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen met her UK counterpart Keir Starmer to discuss security issues, including the situation regarding Greenland. Frederiksen said after the meeting that the two leaders agreed to work closely on security concerning not only Greenland but the Arctic region. Before taking office for his second term, Trump said he would not rule out using military force to seize control of Greenland, calling it vital to U.S. national security. His oldest son, Donald Trump Jr., visited Greenland last month and told citizens, "We're going to treat you well." Ken Friberg, a senior legal official from Greenland's parliament, said he did not know whether any foreign donors had contributed to Greenland's political parties and that the idea for the bill is a preventative measure. Thailand said it will suspend electricity and fuel supplies to some border areas with Myanmar in an effort to curb scam centers. Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister Phoutham Wechayachai said regional electricity authorities will be told to cut off power to areas where scam compounds are believed to be operating. Basic essentials in these areas, such as power and internet, are reportedly provided by other countries and not Myanmar. The illegal compounds have ensnared vast numbers of people forced to work in scam centers along the Thai-Myanmar border, generating billions of dollars. The scam compounds have come into renewed focus after Chinese actor Wang Xing was abducted in Thailand last month and taken to Myanmar before he was freed by Thai police. The Thai move comes as Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra arrived in Beijing for her first visit to China since taking office in August. And still ahead, a 7-hour disruption to East Rail Line services due to a faulty sensor on an engineer's train. A 5-year-old girl who fell into a coma after a medical procedure at Yanchai Hospital dies. And the Consumer Council rolls out its GBA Smart Guide website for those who want to buy or rent properties in the Greater Bay Area. Welcome back. Train services on the East Rail Line were disrupted for about 7 hours this morning. The MTR Corporation says a faulty sensor on an engineer's train left it sitting on a railway track near Taiwo Station. Normal services resumed in the afternoon after the faulty train was removed from the scene. The faulty engineer's train remained stationary on the southbound track between Fanling and Taiwo stations this morning. All trains passing through the section, whether they were heading to Admiralty, Lawwu or Lak Ma Chau, had to take turns to use the northbound track. The MTR Corporation announced the incident before the East Rail Line began service at around 5:30 a.m. At Taiwo Station, all passengers had to board trains or alight from them on the northbound platform. Service intervals between Taipo Market and Lawwu were adjusted to 16 minutes and up to 24 minutes between Taipo Market and Lok Ma Chau stations.
I was late for work because of the disruptions. And then I panicked because I was like, the next train is in 8 minutes. I had to wait 8 minutes. And everyone was so tight inside the trains.
Because of service disruptions, some bus operators have stepped up the frequency of their routes, connecting Taiwo, Taipo, Shatin, and Tai Wai. They include Route 79 of City Bus and Route B8, linking the Hung Yuen Wei border crossing at the New Territories East. While it might not look that crowded at Taipo Market Station, trains were packed to the gills.
I work quite far from here, so MTR is actually the quickest way to get there if there was no delay. But now that there's delay, I might consider other options.
The MTR Corporation said it detected problems at the sensor of the leveling system of a 5-car engineer's train after it completed overnight work along the tracks. One of its carriages tilted slightly to the left. The railway company apologized for the inconvenience caused but stressed the train did not derail.
The vehicle is a heavy type vehicle that are using for the lifting and loading of different equipment for our trackside asset replacement work. Some of the wheels are off well, but not really derailed in the course of the running. So the train remains stationary at all times.
With the train frequency adjusted but not delayed, some wonder if that means the compensation mechanism is not triggered and the MTR Corporation won't be fined for the disruption. Lawmaker Gary Zhang, a former MTR engineer, said he will bring up the penalty issue at the Legislative Council panel on transport this Friday. The engineer's train involved in this morning's incident was moved away from the site at about 1 p.m. Train services disrupted for about 7 hours, gradually returned to normal in the afternoon. A 5-year-old girl who had been in a coma after a surgical procedure at Yanchai Hospital last year has passed away. The girl suffered a fall in May and sought emergency treatment at the hospital. She required stitches at the back of her head. After the procedure, her heart stopped for over 10 minutes. She was later diagnosed with ischemic brain injury with a lack of blood flow to the brain and was transferred to the pediatric intensive care unit of another hospital. Lawmaker Chen Wen-yan, who has been assisting the girl's family, said the child had relied on life support and her condition had been unstable in recent days. Chan expressed concerns over potential adjustments to the child abuse charges against the nurse and the assistant involved. The Center for Health Protection, or CHP, says the city's tallies of flu cases are still on the rise, with the peak season expected to last 3 to 4 months. Since the start of the year, the city has recorded 199 flu infections. Among the serious or fatal cases involving adults, 75% of them did not receive vaccination against influenza. Speaking on the radio program today, Edwin Choi, controller of CHP, said the type A influenza virus is circulating in popular travel destinations among Hong Kong people, including Japan, Europe, and mainland China. He said that would heighten the transmission risk further in the city. With that, Choi urged the public to receive a flu jab and don a mask, especially in crowded areas. The Consumer Council rolled out its GBA Smart Guide today, a website that provides detailed information for those who wish to purchase or rent properties in the Greater Bay Area. 11 cities are included on the website's list as of now. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Over the course of the last 3 years, the Consumer Council received more than 750 complaints related to the purchase or the renting of properties in the Greater Bay Area, or GBA. 709 of them involved properties in Hong Kong. The remaining 49 cases involved 9 mainland cities and Macau, with 20 complaints coming from Zhuhai and 10 from Huizhou. One such case involved more than 2.3 million yuan. In a bid to address the problem, the Consumer Council today released its GBA Smart Guide, which offers information on purchasing and renting properties in 11 GBA cities such as Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Zhuhai. The guide also explains property-related terminology differences between Hong Kong and the mainland, which could prevent confusion for Hong Kong people who are unaware of mainland property laws.
In light of the emphasis and focus recently on GBA, we actually are seeing the growing need of Hong Kong citizens when they decide to move to GBA on a short-term basis or a permanent basis. Definitely the housing problem will be one of the pressing issues. We came up with this idea of collaborating with our similar organizations in GBA area to come up with this website to talk about the necessary information involved for a person when they are thinking of buying a property.
The Consumer Council reminded residents who want to purchase properties in the Greater Bay Area that the GBA Smart Guide provides information on properties in specific cities, as well as necessary documents for any purchase and local property management policies. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.